Welcome to the Lovecars on the Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiffany Dell, and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to episode 19 of Lovecars on the Grid, your global motorsport podcast roundup. And it's a very quiet week in terms of motorsport. In fact, it's a very quiet week at the only World Championship event of the weekend, which was Formula E. So I think a pretty good place to kick off, Tiff, which was full of controversy and a bit of a home win, but I don't know. I think it was just a funny old weekend for Formula E.
And I was just going to back out of it and just say it was great. 2 wins, two British drivers, Jake Dennis and Alex Lynn winning. But then, of course, as in Formula E, there's never a bit of controversy around the corner. We had this bizarre end to the second race on the Sunday. But no, I mean, they were raving on about the first indoor out. As usual, the hype was up to the ceiling, And of course, it wasn't around the streets of London. It was around the ins and outs of the car parks of the XL Centre. And the grid indoor, it was packed with people. They got all these influencers. They're paying people like Mr. JWW to turn out and rave about it all. And the indoor grid, I've never seen so many people on a grid. All the celeb outdoors was nobody, grandstands half full. But, we can't go on and on taking the mick. I mean, it was like a corporate indoor karting bash. It was lit, I've seen those. I've been in them, bash bang, slow
that's
indoors.
That's a bit harsh. It's a bit of a razzmatazz, a bit of American razzmatazz coming to London.
No, but the actual racing, I'm saying now.
Yeah.
The razzmatazz, I don't mind a razzmatazz. They had a singer on, dances on the thing. So I don't mind the razzmatazz. That's great. It's extra entertainment when you've only got one race in the whole day. The people that go do need the entertainment. But the actual racing, they were clobbering each other left, right, and centre.
That was like, I'll grant you, that was like go-karting. That was a bit of...
Well, yeah, it's like those indoor tracks. There was only one overtaking space for the whole lap, and that was a tight hairpin, followed by a tight hairpin. So you dive bombed to the edge, and they ran out. You saw them all getting on the lock stops. There's a bloke out the side. You were like, I'm sorry, I've got no more lock, and they were clomber. So a lot of that was a bit partial. We had great wins, as I said, Jake Dennis and Alex Lynn. But then towards the end of the final race, when it was all going to kick off because they had a pace car, someone else had knocked into somebody else. And the Audi team, led by Alan McNish, who's the sort of team principal, decided that they came up with this brilliant trick because they realised that the pace car was going slower down the pit lane than the pit lane speed limit. So they called in Lucas de Grassi, who was their lead. He's about 7th or 8th place, and had him cruise down the pit. But apparently you have to stop at your pits. If you come into the pit lane, you must stop. And by the sounds of it, because they were all raging, he had stopped. And apparently he locked up all his wheels. But later, the telemetry, they never showed the actual film, because where the camera was, you couldn't see the pit. It was blocked by a bridge. It was bizarre. We couldn't see it. Anyway, they black flagged him and said he had to come in, and he refused to come in. And now Audi been fined £50,000 for doing it. And Alan McNish was running up and down like an idiot, I mean, oh, God, if it had worked and he'd won, he literally came out ahead and slotted in between the pace car and the leader. It was Stoffel Van Dorn then, or was it? Yes, or was it? I can't remember who was leader at the time. Alex Lynn, maybe. But it was just ridiculous. If they had won, the embarrassment of winning a race like that for a manufacturer like Audi, I think would have been, more harmful than a £50,000 fine, to be honest. But because Alan McNish, who runs it, he was brought up by Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich, his famous Audi competitions boss that took them to all those amazing Le Mans victories. But Ulrich was always one well known for finding the loophole in regulations if it suited him. But bizarrely, Paul McNish has been caught out because in Germany, they went down the pit lane last year sometime. And McNish was one protesting, saying we mustn't do this because it's dangerous.
But it's okay when it's you doing it, though.
Sorry?
But it's okay if you do it, yeah.
Yeah, but... So
look,
controversy.
I'm like you, pushing the boundaries, finding those little loopholes are good, but at some point there must be the moral aspect must come into it as well. So, and morally, that would not have been a good way to win a race. So,
but Formula E have got so many rules because I think the 2 Nissans were disqualified on the Saturday race for some power thing. There's so many rules they seem to have, and yet the simple one that the rest of the world of motorsport uses is the pit lane closes as the pace car approaches the start-finish line. So then you have to queue at the end of the pit lane. You have to rejoin at the back of the queue. So somehow they haven't got that simple rule in their huge rule book. So they just drove through the pit lane, overtook 7 cars and came out. Oh, no. Anyway, the great thing about Formula E.
Go on.
Sorry. As Ayrton said, you were about to say?
No, I was just going to say that these guys, these are some of the best racing drivers in the world, and the money behind it. I just wish it was just a little bit more exciting. It just seems so complicated and so convoluted, and I can't stand all the crashes, all the comings together in professional racing with world class drivers, some of the best drivers in the world. Just doesn't seem right.
Well, they put the fastest at the back with their qualifying system, So, anyway, their great successes, because they love this, is that because you get to the top of the championship, you go to the back of the grid, and it goes a big slow loop. Is that now every single driver mathematically can win the championship in the last weekend, and that's what they want. They don't want someone running away with the championship. They want it in this show. So when they go to Germany to not quite the streets of Berlin, because it's actually the apron of the Tempelhof airport where they've been for several years. It's in a couple of weeks, August 14th and 15th. Any driver can win it. I don't really care anymore. And after that's over, we have no more Formula E until the January next year when they're in Saudi Arabia. And besides, they're still calling that the 21-22 championship, even though it doesn't start till 22. So there you go. You can all watch it at Berlin on April the 14th and 15th, and then thank heavens it'll be over for 6 months.
It's just really hard as a racing fan to get into it. It's really hard.
I know.
I think perhaps if you go and watch it, maybe it's going to be better. Maybe one day we'll get one of these influencer invitations, and we can hobnob it in Saudi Arabia or Berlin or somewhere.
You think they're going to invite me to one of their effects?
It might completely transform your opinion. You never know. I think we should.
Basically, they're trying to find a new crowd. That's all. I think they understand that diehard racing enthusiasts aren't interested at all. I mean, the tweets I get, back everything I say, they just say, someone of the voice said, "Are you still actually watching it?" But I watch it, so you can't comment on it unless you watch it. And there are great drivers in there. I like to see these drivers having a career, they're getting paid very well. But no, still hasn't worked. So anyway, there was at least some real racing going on in cars around Europe. Nothing in America of any major significance, but the GT cars were out. DTM were at the Lausitzring in Germany, and we only got 2 Brits in it. And Philip Ellis won the first round of the Saturday in his Mercedes, first win with Mercedes. So that was great news to Brits. Philip Ellis was a big British GT driver. I think he won the championship a few years back. So that was fantastic. Well, sadly, Esme Hawkey, who did so well qualifying in Monza, had a big shunt into the concrete wall, because they were using the oval in the first corner, a bit like they do at Rockingham. She had a big shunt, but came back on the Sunday. She finished 16th, one place behind the only other lady in the race. She battles with Sophia Flörsch. Ellis, though, had weight penalty again. Once you have success in motorsport nowadays, they stick some lead in your boot. He came to the 4th on the second race on Sunday. So good news. So Brit winning in the DTM.
It's a good-looking car. That Mercedes is a really good-looking car as well. I like the DTM.
No, I've never liked it. That long bonnet. I don't know why. Because the Mercedes are the GT3 cars. Even the road car. I've never. No, I don't know why. It's not. I like a mid-engine GT cars.
It's a good-looking car. You've only we've got to look at your style and look at me with my Autoism t-shirt.
Yes.
For those of you watching, for those on the podcast, a bright red Autoism t-shirt, and Tiff's got some scruffy old gardening t-shirt on that he probably got free from golf.
Golf shirt.
So what else happened? There was
funny enough. Yeah, we had a Brit winning in the DTM, but the British GT Championship round at Spa was actually won by Russian Leo Machitski with his Danish teammate Dennis Lind. And however, they do drive for a British team called Barwell Motorsport, who I think my brother has something to do with it. So good one for Barwell Motorsport. And that win at Spa by Machitski and Lind put them back into the lead of the championship by 1.5 points.
How do you get a half a point? How do you get a half a point?
I don't know. I didn't go into that. Probably sharing the fastest lap. I'm not quite sure. They have a few red flags. In fact, it's a bit controversial because at Donington, the previous round, they had 2 pace cars after first lap shunts, one of which took out Machitski. So it was a bit unfair for them. But this was another start line shunt. Someone in a Merc tried to jump the gun by the looks of it and got sandwiched and shunts. So a bit controversial, the British GT at the moment, hitting each other, but it's still a great spectacle. I love those GT3 cars, Ferraris. And actually, Ferrari aren't in it so much. They are in GTM, but not in the British GT. So, yeah, a lot of good GT racing. Of course, this weekend is the big weekend for GTs because it's the Spa 24-hour race where the international teams come in. A fantastic event in Spa. It's a great track to watch from and walk around for 24 hours.
And what about driving it? What's it like? Is it as good as everyone says? Because you speak to any driver and they say it's the best. Is it the best, Tiff? Is it the best?
It just flows. It just flows. It's so fast and exciting and so much variety of corner, And unfortunately, in Formula One, they're now too quick for it because all the quick corners are just flat out, which is a shame. But, if you're in a GT car, especially going through normally rain showers and dry periods, and it's a real test, that 24-hour race. I only did it a couple of times in a little Toyota in the smallest class when it was a touring car event. But obviously, I raced it in Group C Porsche sports cars, and in fact, the last time I won in the Lister Storm in a British GT race. So
very good.
Yeah, I've forgotten about that. Yeah, the last time I was at Spa, I was on the top step of the podium, having won with the Lister Storm. So yeah, lots of GT racing. It's always good all over the world. And this weekend, it's the big Spa. But of course, bigger than that, back to Formula One.
Yes, absolutely. So next week, of course, or this week, we got Hungary, Formula One, Formula 3 and W Series as well. So all going to be at Hungary. So that's going to be quite exciting.
Good track to it.
We need to talk about...
It's still continuing the Max versus Lewis. There's a good article being written in a magazine that I've just retweeted today, pointing out they're really sort of turning against Horner now. The debate has left the incident behind and moved on to Christian Horner's sort of outbursts and attitude. They've now re-quoted how, where they were at Barcelona, I think he says, Max was brilliant, held his line. Lewis had one choice: get off the track or let him by. Love how good my Max is. And there was somewhere else in Mexico, I think, when they quoted when he had who was his teammate then?
How long ago?
Ricardo, who'd out-qualified him, and Max lunged him at turn one. And again, apparently Horner said, there was either one car coming out of that or no cars, so he's been caught out by his past, supporting Max's aggression, and now he's moaning like mad. So it's continuing. So look forward to the first corner of the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Well, we went over this last week. And we got our record numbers for our very small, very modest podcast, but. And everyone has their own opinion, and the opinion genuinely is: if you like Max, you favour Max, and if you like Lewis, you favour Lewis. I like them both. I do genuinely think that I'm neutral, but it is what it is. Move on. We got to move on, and we're going to move on, Tiff, because we haven't
mentioned bike racing last weekend.
I was just going to say,
we all the bikes, because there was another sad weekend for bikes because a 14-year-old kid, killed Hugo Milan. It's always this falling off and then getting hit by another bike. And one of the British Superbike rounders,
awful.
Was it Brad Jones? He's still in hospital.
Yeah.
He got hit in round one. So it's just you fall and you get hit. And this 14, I've still got mixed feelings, even in motorsport, about allowing 14-year-olds and Ginetta juniors. I want people to grow up more before they have the pressure of a major sporting cash. I know karting is very pressured anyway. But winning the Olympics with this skateboarder, 13 years old. I mean, physically she's brilliant, does amazing things. But the mental pressure of that age of the ones that don't win it, the ones that are crying at home because they didn't even get a medal and they've devoted it. I just think professional sport or Olympics, you shouldn't be able to do it to you're 16 or something. But
what if
the world doesn't work that way?
No, but what if that skateboarder who's 13, what if mentally that this was the time because they were so relaxed because they're 13 and they didn't care about all the pressures? And what about if in 4 years' time, when the next Olympics comes, or 3 years, what if they're over it and they're not going to win? So look, you got to manage it, and you got to understand that children are children. But look at child actors. Typically, a child actor, they don't grow up to be nice, balanced, cool, relaxed people, do they? They almost always seem to end up with issues, and they do. So,
well, the tennis is the only sport that did, because a couple of those American girls cracked up and had to go into rehab and stuff, because they were pushed too early. And I think Wimbledon has got a 16-year-old limit. The trouble with motorsport was we used to have a 16-year-old limit on single-seaters. We were 17, I think, because it was original when I started. Like one country, like France or Sweden, let their kids go to cars at 16. So the rest of Britain, all the British dads will say, well, that's unfair. They'll have a year's more car racing and they'll get ahead of our boys and get to Formula One quicker. And so it's sort of gone down where one country suddenly allows, 13-year-olds or 14-year-olds, and then everybody else has to allow the other countries to follow suit. And I think it's something that the FIA should have taken control of early on. Maybe not allowed countries to have such young drivers in cars or on motorbikes, which of course the story we're talking about mainly here.
Which is awful. But, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that poor young man, his family and everything. But I'm very much on the fence here. But I think my gut feeling is if they're good enough, let them race, let them get involved. Because the safety...
they want to do it, the kids.
Yeah. So the safety typically is so good now, particularly in cars. Of course, with motorbikes, as you quite rightly said, you fall off and you hit another bike, and that's the really, really dangerous thing. My son Oliver, who you know very well, he showed me a clip of a guy, MotoGP or whatever it was, a big bike, skidding along the floor, and then as he hits the gravel, he sort of comes. It's almost like a fake video where he starts standing up and running as if nothing happens. It was just incredible, really. These guys, but yes,
do get away with it.
Thoughts to Hugo and to his family,
and
to Brad Jones, speedy recovery as well.
Family. He's in a induced coma at the moment from Brands. Great racing at Brands as always. The Superbikes, 3 different winners: Jason O'Halloran and Taryn McKenzie, and Christian Iden, who now moves to the lead of the British Superbikes. And of course, the World Superbikes were over in Aachen, Holland, weren't they? And they also had Jonathan Rea winning 3 rounds again. But there was controversy over there with the World Superbikes because the main challenger to Rea, Toprak, I've got to read it every time because I haven't got it yet. The Turk rider, Toprak Razgatlioglu, who has been challenging Rea, was on pole for the final race, but he got taken out by his teammate, the American Garrett Gerloff. It was a bit of a Yamaha protege. They brought him over from America. He did one MotoGP race, I think, last year. But he's had a couple of bargy incidents already this year, and he's in big trouble now because he took out turn 1, made a great start, and got carried away and just dived inside Toprak at turn 1 and took him down. Didn't fall himself, and then he fell later on his own. So, World Superbikes. Jonathan Rea continues, whereas the opposition was literally falling apart. But, of course, no bikes this weekend, no MotoGP this weekend, no World Superbikes. So it's just Formula One, BTCC up at Alton Park. But of course, where should you be this weekend?
And Silverstone. You're racing, I
Classic. Just a little bit. Yeah, just 6 races. Just a McLaren M1 Can-Am car, an Osella 2-litre sports car, a Ford Capri, a Lister Jaguar, an E-Type Jaguar. And I've forgotten one.
You're doing the commentary as well, aren't you, for some of the races?
Oh, I'm presenting the television for the ITV4 with Nikki Shields, who of course does Formula E. So I'm sure we'll be having. She's already ticked me off on Twitter for being too anti-Formula E. But the Silverstone Classic, I mean, it's 3-day event. It's the most wonderful camping car show. I think it's the best event classic around the world. I think it's better than Goodwood's Festival of Speed almost. It hasn't got the superstars there or the big cars from the past, but it's got massive car clubs. It's sort of the working man's Goodwood, as it were, the huge gatherings of all sorts of different manufacturers and the fun fair. And a great event for the family this weekend at Silverstone.
Well, I might see you up there, but I need a paddock ticket, please.
Oh, what?
I need Tickets? a paddock ticket. Yes, one of those with the little VIP badge, the nice lanyard. Those big posh things that you wear that I never get.
I might allow you to be my guest at the British Racing Drivers' Club. You have to wear proper clothes. No, you have to wear, shirt, trousers.
Well, I know that, and I look forward to it, and that'd be brilliant. I can't wait to see how you get on. So last time it was 5 out of 5 podiums. You think you can top it and get 6 out of 6 this weekend? That's a kiss of death.
The grids are huge. It's a bigger event. There's drivers all over. Martin Brundle, of course, in E-Type with his son. So that was one of the big battles. I'll be up against Martin Brundle in the E-Types. The Lister Knob is going quite well. That's quite a good car. So
let's not put the kiss of death on any of them. Looking forward to seeing your exploits as well this weekend. Thanks for joining us this week. What are you going to say? You're going to say one more thing.
The TVR Griffith, of course. The TVR Griffith is the 6th car. So
it was there somewhere. Thanks for joining. See you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.